Good morning, everyone. My name is Gary Summers. We'll start the webinar in about 2 minutes. We'll let a few more people log in. I know we've got a number of folks who are still in the process of logging in, but welcome and thank you for joining us this morning and afternoon, wherever your time zone is. Thank you, Patrick. I can't see you, but it's good to see you too. All right, everybody, let's get started. Thank you for joining our webinar today on managing your PeopleSoft applications on Amazon Web Services. My name is Gary Summers. I'm going to be the host here today, and we're excited that you're joining us this morning if you're on the East Coast, or on the West Coast, in the afternoon if you're on the East Coast. We've got a great webinar planned, so let's get into it now. Vishal, if you could go to the next. Well, first of all, I want to introduce everybody. I'm Gary Summers. I know many of you. I've worked with many of you in the past, and it's good to see you on the webinar. Thank you for joining us. I've been in this business for over 40 years, first on the higher ed side, working for Northeastern University in Boston, and then Gordon College in Massachusetts as well. And then I've been a consultant and a sales exec for the past 20 years or so, working with the PeopleSoft applications, worked for a number of different companies, including Oracle. And I'm glad to be with ERPA now. I'll tell you more about ERPA in a bit, but it's great to join us. We are privileged to have Todd Smoak, who's the Executive Director of Technology Services at Illinois State University, join us. Todd, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure, Gary. Thanks. Todd Smoak from ISU. I've been with ISU for about the last 8 years, spent some other time at other higher eds as well as in the public and private sector implementing various ERP systems. And I just, PeopleSoft just happened to fall onto me when I got to ISU. But it's been a learning experience, and I think we're doing pretty good.
Great, thank you. We're also joined today by Vishal Kothari, who's our Senior VP of Delivery and Solutions at ERPA. He's responsible for the overall solutions where we deliver managed hosting and managed services. Vishal, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Gary. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to those on the West Coast. My name is Vishal Kothari, and I am responsible for the managed services delivery and solutions at ERPA. I also manage our Center of Excellence, which is based in Dublin, Ohio. And thank you, Todd, for joining us today and sharing with us with your experience and insights.
Just thank you, Vishal. So before we get started here, I'd just like to mention 2 housekeeping items. The first is that we are recording this webinar, and the results will be available for those of you who may need to leave early or want to send this to your colleagues. The second item is that if you have questions for us, you can ask them in the chat, and we will address them at the end of the webinar. A third item is midway through the webinar, we'll also be doing a couple of poll questions for you. So with that said, Vishal, if you could go to the next slide. Here's our agenda today. We're going to talk a little bit about Illinois State University, discuss briefly ERP analysts, and then we want to talk about some of the drivers that we've seen in the client base out there amongst our customers for going to managed hosting. And then we're going to talk specifically about the ISU case study, what their experience was, what their experience with the managed hosting is, and how they chose the right partner to help them. And then we're going to discuss our managed hosting services offering, and then we'll have some Q&A. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Todd to talk about Illinois State University, which is the premier institution in the state of Illinois, premier public institution in the state of Illinois. Todd?
Well, I think there are definitely some people who argue with that, but I know we pride ourselves on being the state's first public university, not this Big Ten school that happens to be about an hour down the street from us that shares a very, very similar name. But there, I think they put some stats on the screen. You can kind of see how that maybe relates to you and our size, 20,000 students. And for those of you who are even more curious, you know, in Corona times, we are probably about 90% online for the fall semester and 10% in person or hybrid, I would say, or maybe a little bit more than that. Obviously, everything's shifting with the pandemic as we go, but I can also say our enrollment's still looking pretty good for the fall. So census numbers don't come out for another week or so, but we're keeping optimistic, and we're obviously it's keeping us all very busy right now as we go forward. We're looking at about 1,000 faculty, 1,500 total instructors, probably another 2,500 staff, a bunch of student workers, throughout the year. And I represent Technology Solutions, which is the central IT group at Illinois State University, which houses about 175 FTE plus, probably like 50 or so part-time students that we use to service the campus. And the campus still does have some decentralized IT in terms of like unique college IT support. Those groups tend to do a lot more endpoint computing, and that's kind of how our campus is set up, all centrally located in the heart of Illinois, I would say 2 hours southwest of Chicago.
It's a beautiful campus. Thanks, Todd, for sharing that. Vishal, if you could go to the next slide. I'll tell you a little bit about ERPA. We are a full service Oracle PeopleSoft shop. We've been in business for over 21 years, so we've been around for quite a long time. We do a lot of managed services. We are experts, and out of our Center for Excellence in Dublin, Ohio, we have over 500 Oracle PeopleSoft experts. We have a really high customer sat rate. We've got a number of value-added services, a lot of certified consultants. See down there that we've done over 1,500 projects with over 500 clients. But one of the great things about ERPA is our culture of care and the way that our founding values really drive our service delivery. So we founded the Sponsor Kids Foundation, and our values there, you can see, are empathy, responsibility, passion, agility. And we are striving every day to live out those core values in our service engagements. Now I'm going to turn it over to Todd, I believe. Is that correct here? Oh, no, yeah. These are some of the drivers we see for customers in the marketplace for looking for managed hosting. Why would you want to do managed hosting? Here's a list of what we see other customers say about that journey. Todd, can you tell us a little bit about your particular experience here?
Sure. For ISU, we initially started in 2011 on premise with HCM, PeopleSoft only. We had a small team. I wasn't even in the picture. The team struggled to keep current with patching and new functionality as our business usage grew quickly. So in 2014, when we decided to add campus solutions and complete our migration off of a legacy mainframe environment, that's when we really decided that we couldn't do it all ourselves, right? And so ISU happens to be located in a smaller area in central Illinois, like I said, 2 hours southwest of Chicago, but actually we're where the headquarters of State Farm is, and 45 minutes to our west is the headquarters of Caterpillar. And I say that just to say those two institutions, corporations, use PeopleSoft HCM, and they also pay corporate size salaries. So recruiting PeopleSoft staff to come work at a university not the easiest thing you can do in a small town, right? Where our population is basically combined at around 120, 130,000 people. So recruiting local talent, expertise is hard to do. Therefore, so is retention. We also occasionally have these large swirling gusts of wind that like to adjust the landscape here in central Illinois. So yeah, we get tornadoes, right? And because of that, disaster planning is always a concern. We're always thinking about, and we, even though we have multiple on-site data centers, actually, on-site isn't enough, right? Because if a tornado were to hit us, likelihood is it would take out or affect all of our on-site resources. So those are some things that were really driving us toward a managed hosting experience.
And it gets really cold in the winter too.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Todd, for that. So, Todd, when you embarked on your journey for finding this managed services and managed hosting solution, what was the needs that you were looking to address? What was the requirements?
Well, yeah. So in 2015, we started with a managed services adventure directly with another provider. And after living through that for a few years, we could actually define what we needed in a managed services partner. We struggled with things like performance during peak workloads, like course registration. We struggled getting immediate help when we were having issues. We struggled with operational issues that put ownership on us when we didn't have direct access to actually control services. We had problems when we had the problems, you know, they seemed to last us all day, like just exhausting. They would be exhausting levels of problems, the level of bureaucracy, paperwork, limited resource availability to actually help us when a problem did occur. It's not like you can plan for a problem, right? And so to say like, well, we don't actually have anyone available to help you, that became kind of a problem. All in all, we wanted to serve our customers better, and they were unhappy with the number of outages, problems, you know, how long they were lasting, I would say. And so we did an RFP 2 years ago to find a new partner. And I basically went out and beat the bushes to find vendors who could have something different and better to offer us. And we went through that selection process.
Thank you, Todd, and thank you for choosing ERPA for that solution. And I'd just like to touch upon, you know, when we designed the solution, obviously the in scope for the application campus solution and HCM on Oracle and Linux. But there were certain key considerations that we had to take into account when we designed the solutions. One is the number of integration broker synchronous messages, about 125,000, and that's a lot of load. Also, Todd, you mentioned the student registration or the course registration events. We designed the system to concurrently support about 7,500 users. So we went with a design that could support slightly higher, which is 8,000 concurrent users. There was also a requirement from ISU. ISU has a data warehouse which needs real-time data, and we need a nightly pull to pull that information from PeopleSoft on the cloud to the data warehouse. And then there were also stringent RPO and RTO requirements. So we came up with this solution, and it essentially is two components, right? Managed hosting and managed services. When we talk about managed services, we designed the architecture using EC2 servers. We primarily used the R5 and M5 types for app servers, the T3 type for web servers, and for database, the i3 bare metal series. We have about 44 EC2 servers supporting the CS and HCM environments. We have 7 environments each, 1 prod and 6 non-prods on campus solution and HCM. And these are supporting app, web, database, process, Elasticsearch, and SFTP servers. And the total number of vCPUs is around 98 with about 640 gig of RAM. Designed it for high availability and performance. So when we talk about high availability, this architecture is deployed in an active format across multiple availability zones or data centers. The workload is split between these availability zones with a set of app and web servers in each availability zone. And the end users do not feel the latency when it switches from one AZ to the other second availability zone. The reason is because of the strong backbone that AWS has built. AWS has a robust backbone and network. So what does this mean for our users? Even if one data center in a region goes down, within the same region, we have the other data center or availability zone, which will pick up the workload. So also from a scalability perspective, we kind of designed this architecture for supporting a baseline load, but for peak events such as student registrations, course registrations, we scale up the environment to take up that load. From a cross-region DR perspective, for meeting ISU's requirement, we designed a cross-region DR. The primary is in the East Coast region, and our DR is in the West Coast region. We are replicating the database in the DR region using DataGuard, and we are using Amazon Sync for EFS and syncing up the EFS that way. In case of an event, what will happen is we just need a few minutes to bring up the environment live using infrastructure as a code or CloudFormation templates, and then just point the architecture to the database, and the environment will be live in few minutes. When we talk about performance, actually it's basically in two aspects, right? Two steps. First, we design the architecture for that performance. And then our DBAs, our PS admins, our cloud engineers are always tuning the environment for specific parameters such as Java heap size or database stats or temp tables and a lot of these database parameters. So we tune it for the performance. For security, it's always a shared responsibility with Amazon. Amazon is responsible for the physical security of the facilities, hardware, and network. And ISU, in partnership with ERPA, we are responsible for the app security. And security is actually baked into our design of the architecture, right? So we have taken into consideration the design, subnet design, ACL route tables, VPCs, in addition to various aspects of security design. For monitoring, we are utilizing CloudWatch and Oracle Grid for monitoring various database parameters and AWS infrastructure parameters. And we have set up alerts to alert us if certain parameters go beyond a threshold. It also automatically creates a ticket in our ticketing system, incident management system. We also built some automation for ISU using our tool Activegenie. And one thing that I'd like to highlight here is one-click refresh. We are able to refresh an environment with the code base and the data and everything in few hours, just using that one button refresh. Also, we've automated on-demand start and stop of environments, and we are working on identifying other areas where we can automate. The second aspect of the solution is obviously managed services. We are providing managed services which are backed by service levels, industry-leading service levels. Also, in that we have the application support, which is your incident management and problem management, application management, where we are providing the PS administration services and also routine tasks and activities such as refresh, backups, and environment creations, project migrations. And the third thing, which is also very important, is the application maintenance. ISU wants to stay current with the latest and the greatest versions of PeopleSoft, along with patching. So we have devised a schedule, and we are constantly updating the application software with the patches available. And also from a database perspective, we are doing database administration. Recently, we are in midst of a database upgrade, so we are keeping that current. Also, we are also applying the CPU or the security patches. On occasion, there are needs for functional requirements, so we augment our services through functional support as well. In short, we are serving as a one-stop shop for ISU, providing all these services. It is backed by our customer success model, and I would like to say that it's more of a managed service partner kind of a relationship than a managed services provider kind of a relationship. So with that, Todd, what were the results that you experienced? I mean, what has been your experience? What are the results that you've seen through this solution?
Well, we've been live since November of last year. So November 2019 is when we launched live with ERPA in our production environment. And I think we found a brighter future. Honestly, we've got someone who we consider a true partner with us, which is in ERPA, which is great. We've been able to meet the demands of our users, keep our environments patched and current. You can see we're at the latest PUM of everything, and we're constantly deploying those. It seems like every month or two, like Vishal indicated. And we've because of that, and it's been so smooth, honestly, it's allowed our PeopleSoft team, our internal team, which we still have, to focus on helping our customers get the best use out of the PeopleSoft products we own. If there's an issue, there's no delay in engagement with resources who can help immediately, right? And most of the time, I can tell you that, like ERPA for us, like they bring multiple talented people to a Zoom call. Like if we say, hey, we need to get on a call, it's not just one person who shows up, or one person who's a liaison. There'll be like 6 people, more than I can handle sometimes, right? of resources just there to make sure that every basis is covered. We also have we're an O365 school, Office 365. We also have an open Teams chat with their staff. So our admin team is constantly just bouncing ideas back and forth with their admin. So like Vishal said, it really does feel like an extension of our team. We work as one. We work together very closely. It's just that ERPA is bringing more resources than we could ever have to our own team to the pool. And I think it's been successful so far. So here we are going on 9 months, and we're feeling pretty good about what we've got.
That's great, Todd. What kept you awake at night before you moved into this new solution?
Well, it kind of got mentioned just previously, but course registration was our biggest headache, I would say, in our campus solutions environment. We went through multiple semesters where we would crash. Now, honestly, part of that is on us as an institution. Someone at the university has decided that instead of giving, say, students unique registration times staggered throughout the day and letting them trickle in, because it would be hard to decide who really gets to go, who gets seniority in some of those cases, that maybe we should just let, I don't know, the whole freshman class, like 3,500 students, all compete for 30 seats in one course at the same exact time. 8 a.m. everyone go get that one course you need for next semester, and if you don't get it, you'll be here an extra half a semester. That actually happens at ISU, and because that's a business decision, not within IT. We have some level of influence, but not every. And so registration, gosh, big headache, big worry. We were kind of constrained in our previous environment. Even though we had contracted for support of a certain number of concurrent users, every time we had an issue, we would try a few parameters. Oh, it kind of goes away. It looks like it's maybe better. We're gonna have to wait until next time, because you can't really simulate course registration for 3,000, 2,000. I mean, for any large occurrence, right? So you really have to wait until the next time and cross your fingers. I can tell you, we had course registration in the spring. 3,000 students landed at 8 a.m. We didn't crash. And it's because we scaled up and we were able to adjust our loads to meet the needs within the Amazon space. So that problem doesn't exist today, and that's a relief, right? And it's a big weight off our shoulders. But now we can really go back and go, look, we got the environment, so it's not crashing. But now we're having more deeper business discussions about, but really, should we be doing it this way? Is it fair to put this level of burden on the IT resources, especially in these times when there are seemingly other ways that we could go about this?
Other strategic priorities, yeah. The other thing I think people worry about when they're thinking about making the transition to a managed services environment is the actual physical transition. Can you talk about the transition process and your observations about how that transition went?
Well, yeah, so I mean, we transitioned our new production environments over a weekend without a hitch. It probably took longer to migrate the DNS entries nationwide than it did for our admins to actually log in to the new migrated environments, you know, and then we just spent the rest of the weekend testing, confirming, making sure everything was right, everything was where it was supposed to be before we we started Friday night after hours, and you know, by Saturday night, we had our business users logging in. Sunday, they were doing validation and just doing the same confirmations. And we released the system on Sunday night, a soft launch, and Monday, business as usual. So that went well. Amazon, AWS, I think has been a great for us in that regard. You know, one clarity for us that, you know, for us, we didn't really necessarily see savings in terms of infrastructure costs and this kind of move or in using Amazon, but we weren't seeking that out per se either. I mean, and I say that because we have a full enterprise hardware and software stack here, like VMware, SANS, Blades, the whole 9 yards. So yeah, we're buying additional infrastructure in Amazon, but we're also getting DR environments that aren't here, right? And cross region and really all the automation and tooling that comes with those environments that you don't completely natively get, right? If you're just putting in VMware, you have to manage each of those aspects on your own. You don't have this cool dashboard that kind of lets you do it all at the click of a button per se.
Yeah. So you've talked about how we communicate and collaborate. How did we overcome any challenges with service delivery?
I think we just we as a team we've evolved, right? ERP, if we have an issue, ERPA shows up, and they show up big every time and quickly. You know, after we went live, we found things where, hey, maybe we didn't actually have enough performance in a reporting server or something else. And with Amazon, we're actually able to provision a new server and swap them out on the fly, basically behind the scenes. And we did all of that quickly, sometimes, you know, without some of the users even noticing that we were having performance problems. So I think we were able to essentially move quickly to adjust our services. And ERPA has been very open to feedback along the way about those services, about like, hey, we'd like a little bit this here, we'd like a little bit more, we'd like a little more say or a little more access, or if there's any problem. It's been a open conversation, open feedback, both directions. Hey, you need to do this. No, we need to do this. Okay, yeah, all right, let's adjust our services.
Yeah, thank you. Do you have anything else you want to add around the overall relationship and service level?
I think it's been great. The overall relationship is definitely solid. One of the things that we got out of ERPA was, and we asked for, was just help our team gain knowledge. Tell us how it works. So from the moment we were doing setup, which we kind of kicked this project off in like a July to go live in November, ERPA was teaching us, they were training us. So this is why we're doing this. And they would let us ask why over and over and over again until we understood it, right? We bring our DBAs to the conversation and we'd argue about parameters. Well, I always did it this way. Why do you do it this way? And how does that impact in Amazon? And, you know, so we could just learn and be smarter about the whole process. And that's been really healthy for us because as a team, it allows us to mature, to really understand the service that we are jointly providing with the help of ERPA. And that's been really good for us.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thank you. So, you know, as you look back, it's been a great experience, but I think when you consider how you choose the right partner up front before you have all this experience, it's a little tricky. What was important for you in choosing a managed services and hosting partner up front?
Well, and I can tell you that we, since we had some experience before, we kind of, that helped to shape us, that helped shape our ideas, but transparency was huge for us. We have read-only access to like our production systems. We can see everything that's happening everywhere. We have real-time access to the data, the logs we needed just in case there are security incidents or production issues to troubleshoot. We're definitely more mature as a PeopleSoft team. And we wanted the flexibility of future options too, and we got that with our ERPA agreement, like the ability to take over our cloud environment without having to do another migration, if that ever came up. It's not really a plan for us, but our leadership was also thinking, hey, what are our options? Let's, and not having to migrate, right, is always more ideal than that. So ERPA has been there for us. They've been flexible in that regard. I already mentioned the knowledge sharing, but we also know who to call when things aren't right, and they're there for us. So we can Teams chat them, and they're there, they're quick, they're available. The level of paperwork and bureaucracy is a level that we can both manage together. We actually have evolved that together because we're an ITSM shop. Most of our staff are ITIL certified. And so we kind of had a particular way of wanting to even refer to tickets and talk about them and use the right language. And that's something that we've brought to ERPA and said, hey, if you guys talk about it like this, we'll go faster, and that's what they did. So they were able to adapt and evolve to us. So that was great.
We've got one question, which we'll address at the end. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. We'll continue to, we'll answer them at the end. So I'm going to ask Vishal to talk a little bit about some of the key considerations for an AWS solution. And this actually might be, well, go ahead, Vishal.
Yeah, so we did talk about all these considerations in our solution, but I actually wanted to ask Todd for his insights on these considerations, the high availability, security. We've always talked, we talked about this when I was talking about the case study, but from your perspective, Todd, what is important and how did the solution address all of these key considerations?
Sure. When we did our RFP this time, we didn't ask the vendors who were proposing to propose AWS. We just said, bring us a best practices solution and justify why it's going to meet our needs and why it's going to be great for us. We already had some experience with AWS on our own because we have our own tenant. We are doing some stuff related to like PCI compliance in AWS because that way the certifications were there. We had some other smaller managed service offerings with cloud providers that we knew used AWS to deliver their platform. So we're already pretty comfortable with that. And so when ERPA said, you can do this in AWS, we can do it in AWS. And by the way, here are 10 other customers that we're doing this in AWS with already. That gave us the warm and fuzzies that really helped us know that, this was a proven solution. We weren't out on the fringe, right? And with that, the tools that are provided by AWS and ERPA to control what we want to control, because we let ERPA do some of that for us. More of our time is basically focused on engaging our user community. And when I say more of our time, before I would say it was more spent on micromanaging our vendor relationship, and we don't have to do that anymore. So we have more time available to us. We're just, okay, you take these tasks and we'll take these tasks and we're going to go and do the push button refresh of prod to say test in a few hours, the push button control of, hey, restart the test environment, hey, restart the dev environment. When we know that we're making changes on our own that require those things or cache to be cleared, etc. Those timing improvements and the ease of use where we can do that and walk away and do something else and not have to babysit it, that's huge. And it can always happen when we want it to happen at that one click of a button. I mean, those are great tools and things that really help us be really effective and high performing in this type of environment.
Thank you, Todd. So talking about that automation that we are bringing to the table and for ISU, we have a tool called Activegenie, and what this does is it centralizes monitoring for both PeopleSoft and AWS, and it's a one-stop monitoring automation administration center for our service engineers. So what essentially it lets us do is it's like a command center. We are monitoring and administrating both the AWS and PeopleSoft components. There are thresholds, alerts, and then there's also the automation components, like you mentioned, Todd, the on-demand start and stop, the one-click refresh, and the dashboards, which for PS admins and also the infrastructure administrators. So It is, and we also have an operations calendar for scheduling maintenance. For scheduled maintenance, our CS groups gets together with ISU teams and we plan. And we also have a schedule calendar on this tool, which helps us manage those environments. And we are always looking to add more features to this tool and more automation. We'll continue to work with ISU to take honest feedback and develop certain components which will add to the and enhance this tool. So at this point, Gary, I'll just present the poll questions.
Yes. Oh, do you want to address the question now, or do you want to do the poll question?
Let me launch the poll question, Gary.
Okay. So we're going to ask a poll question of you about where your PeopleSoft environment is currently hosted, whether it's on-prem or an internal data center, or a third-party data center, or whether you're using infrastructure as a service, whether it's AWS, OCI, Azure, or some other solution. So if you could, we'll give you a couple seconds to respond to this. And the great thing is we get immediate feedback, I think, I hope.
Yes, Gary. So we still have people voting. About 40% people have already voted. We're just going to give some more time for this question.
We could play some polling music in the background, but we're not that sophisticated, so. Okay. What do the results look like? So
73% are using internal data centers and on-premise infrastructure. 9% are on third-party data center, and about 18% are on cloud infrastructure.
Great.
Infrastructure as a service. And let me launch the second question.
Sure. Second question, how current are you on the PUM updates? First option is up to date. One is you apply only once a year. Second is a lot of catch up to do, and then not on version 9. So if you could quickly respond to this, we'd appreciate it. And how do the results look, Vishal?
So about 50% have voted, and the results are 62% are up to date, which is a very good thing. And then
that's great.
About 28% are applying the pumps once in a year, and that's I think nobody seems to have a lot of catch up to do, and everybody's on version 9.2, so that's good.
Very good. Very good. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our overall portfolio. If you can go to the next slide. Here we go. Here's the ERPA portfolio. We do a lot of other stuff, and we do it really well. So we do managed services. We also provide project services, functional support, consulting services. We're seeing a number of clients right now who have been on PeopleSoft for a while and are now looking to add additional modules or additional functionality. And we're doing that for a number of clients right now. We do infrastructure hosting, we do transition services, and then we've got a number of value-added services, which you can go to the next slide. So we've got, we offer a PeopleSoft health check. If you want us to come in and look at your system, evaluate the infrastructure, evaluate your performance, assess additional areas where you could find improvements, both technically and functionally. That's our PeopleSoft health check. We provide an automated testing service, provide automated security. We've done rapid fluid deployment. We've done it for several clients. They're very happy with that. We also do PUM as a service, dashboard and analytics, and robotic process automation. So we have other services, and if you're interested in those, we'd love to talk to you about those. So we got one question, and that was from St. Lawrence College in Canada, which is, if we have our own AWS tenant, can we utilize that and utilize your managed services? Vishal, can you address that or kick it to the right individual?
Yes, so we can definitely, we have customers who are owning their own AWS tenant, and then there are customers for whom we are owning the AWS account for the PeopleSoft applications.
Yeah.
We can do it both ways, and the managed services would remain the same, but the model, the infrastructure component, if you own the account, we also are good to support that as well.
Right.
I hope that answers the question.
I think it does. Todd, you specifically decided not to own the account. Can you talk about your reasons for that a little bit?
Well, I mean, for us, it's the state of Illinois procurement laws are extreme because lots of our governors have spent lots of time in jail. That's the only thing I can equate to it. I mean, it is not common or the best. And so working through how we had to write our contracts per se, our agreement is such that we're an organization under the for this particular thing where I think we're under the ERPA tenant, but it's also built in such a way that we can disenfranchise at any moment if we wanted to and take ownership of that AWS organization, which is pretty cool. So to me, that really just comes down to contractual language, right? And whatever your purchasing or procurement group allows for and how you have to write that and get that done. So that's the way we handled it. But I think it was pretty straightforward, and there's a lot of options. I mean, ERPA actually told our procurement group, well, we can write it this way or write it this way or write it this way. And our procurement group said, whoa, we can't handle all of those choices. We'll take this one, you know. And so that was actually fine for us too. So that's how we worked it out within our procurement group to abide by the state of Illinois laws and keep ourselves out of jail, I guess.
Great, thanks, Todd. Do we have any other questions? I don't see any other questions in the chat. I'm going to consult with my team on Teams. Do we have any other questions out there?
I see a couple there that we answered, right, related to like, does Oracle support this configuration? You know, in our configuration, we're using EC2 database instances, which is just a server and a you know, at this point in a data center, right? So it's definitely Oracle fully supports that. So that's how we elected to do this for us. But maybe Vishal, you can talk more about, you know, other options. Is that your preferred? Do people still use RDS for this, and you know, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so actually, that's a good point, Todd. For RDS, what we've seen is people who have standardized on the data centers and standardized across RDS on different applications, they have a corporate standard or a policy. So we are okay to do it for RDS. Obviously, there are benefits where it gets auto-patched and maintenance is much of a less of a hassle there. But for EC2, for PeopleSoft environments, we have a lot of flexibility in you know, designing the database, tuning the parameters, and you know, designing the individual components within the server. So if you want more flexibility, like we wanted, Todd, we went with EC2. And Gary, you have a question. Does Gary Summers wear a bow tie 24/7?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I have not been wearing it during the pandemic, so I thought now that we're starting to come out of the pandemic, I would get back into the tradition of wearing the bow tie. And this is one my daughter gave me. It's an American flag, so I like it very much. We do have another question here. What's the Oracle DB licensing model you used here? And let's see. So Todd, you already had Oracle Enterprise licensing, correct?
We did. We have Oracle Enterprise licenses. So for our databases, we can have unlimited, basically. So that's our current model. We already had Oracle in place. So yeah, with all of the features, bells and whistles. Yes. Some of which I don't even think we're not even using like we're not using RAC anymore, I don't think, Vishal, where we used to, but we're using Active Data Guard still for replication,
Yes.
and we
Yes.
have the database encrypted at rest, and those features enabled.
Correct.
Okay. What are other options that they could utilize for database licensing, Vishal?
For database licensing, either you can go through Amazon or bring your own license. And I think a lot of these companies have a organization-wide Oracle agreement, which they bring their own database licenses. I've seen maximum of our clients do that.
But it is possible to acquire it through AWS.
That is correct.
Okay. We have another question here. How are mods handled in this environment? Todd, do you want to address that first, and then I'll have Vishal address it?
Yeah, I mean, I have to speculate on the question a little bit, but
Okay.
I mean, so we have a small team of developers. We do most of our own modifications and maintenance of those modifications and bolt-ons that we've developed, right? So, you know, whether it's a custom page or a custom insurance form or something like that, we kind of just maintain those and migrate those and test those as part of the environment. We have a standardized migration process through the multiple environments that we have, and so we haven't directly relied on any ERPA services for that, although I know ERPA offers services. One thing that we did get, or we asked for in our contract or relationship with ERPA, is to bring us some functional consulting support. And also we asked them to bundle in some options for further consulting support, so we wouldn't have to come back to the table later and renegotiate that, or just negotiate that when we needed something. And so that's all built into our agreement, and that's helped us. Like last year, we actually did another engagement that was kind of an add-on to our agreement on degree audit, and it's been a huge, because it was an area that our functionals were struggling with and didn't know how to best utilize it, and we're just being very frustrated because honestly, we launched Campus Solutions in a year, and so we launched very fast, and we didn't necessarily have time to spend a great amount of energy on all the details in some places. So you know, we had some of our business partners were left behind, and so we're playing catch up still, but I think we're in a lot better place, and now we can just focus on honing the system and honing that usage to be really good. And so, but that's what we've elected to kind of keep track and keep track of our modifications. We have very few modifications in Campus Solutions. We have only a couple, and the rest are, I would say, more like bolt-ons, where they're separate freestanding pages where that functionality didn't exist. But I know in a few places we modified what would show up in a message box, or made it you know, rich text friendly, so we could have hyperlinks and tasks and to-dos and that sort of thing. We have a few more modifications on the HCM side, because we started with that first, and I think at this point we've actually reduced our modifications in over the years, just as we've learned more about what it does, as well as Oracle is ultimately come along and continue to build out functionality that everyone's using, and then we've tried to adopt that wherever we could, right? Because we could get more to vanilla, and then we'd have less time when we go through these PUM updates every month. But we can pretty much, you know, take a PUM update and put it in within a month easily within our environment, with all the regression testing and validation testing, and we still execute that each time we do it. So
the impact of applying PUMs, the impact of your mods on applying PUMs is minimal.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just a rinse and repeat kind of process for us these days.
Yeah. Okay. Couple of questions here about licensing costs. I see people are interested in licensing costs. So one question, did your licensing costs change to run PeopleSoft and Oracle in AWS? And the answer is the tech licensing didn't change at all, right? And then there's no change to your PeopleSoft licensing as well. For those of you out there in radio land, I think it's going to depend on what your current licensing model is. Some people have enterprise licensing, some have CPU-based licensing, some may have other kind of licensing. If you're really interested in pursuing that question, I'd suggest you reach out to us offline, and we can look at your current circumstances and kind of evaluate that. We have another question about people are on SQL Server. We are on SQL Server. Can we use the AWS Managed Database Service for SQL Server? Or is it best to use the non-AWS Managed Service instances to control the certification compatibility? That's probably a question for Vishal or one of his team.
Yeah, I'll direct this question to AJ or Kiran.
Yeah.
AJ?
The SQL Server, again, AWS provides multiple flexible options, right? So we could do the SQL Server database on AWS EC2 machines, or we could do the RDS instances and have it use it that way. It also depends on if you have your licensing. Probably I would say licensing. What kind of licensing agreements you have in place for the database would play the biggest role in the decision making factor there. Yeah, it does support the BYOL model, so the bring your own license is certainly supported here. And I also see there are certain specifics that we would need to know to answer very specifically, David. I will write to you on the additional questions, and then we can provide you the clarification there.
Thank you, Kiran. Thank you. We have another question here about Activegenie, and that is the Activegenie component only available with your managed services?
Yeah, so Gary, for our managed services customer is primarily a tool for our service engineers and our customers, PS admins, to improve the efficiency and get the dashboards and monitoring capability. So right now we're just offering it with our managed services service offering and managed hosting.
Another question here. What's the difference in your cost before and after moving to ERP? I think that's what the question is. What's the difference in your overall cost? And if you can just give us an order of magnitude, maybe, Todd. You saved some money, correct? I believe
we did. I would say that we saved, for us, probably where we were before and what we are now, we saved 20-30% easily, and we have some more options on the table for saving. So even as part of our move, we've moved at a slow pace to what we were comfortable with. But the ERPA has continued to present options like, all right, this actually could save you a little bit more, and our agreement is built that way. It's adjusted, with hey, here's what your environments will cost. But if we can lower the cost by doing these things, then that cost savings will be passed on to us too, which is also not something that you would typically find in your average vendor or relationship or partner. Like ERPA has been really good to work with. They're not, they're very transparent. I mean, AWS pricing is public. Like you can go out and find it, and you can call your own AWS rep, which, by the way, I think Patrick is on the line for us. Hey, Patrick. And you can find out like, oh, this is what we're paying in our own tenant, so this is what it should cost over here, right? Well, absolutely. So like, take that kind of fluff out of the equation. You're not paying for, one hard drive doesn't cost you $20,000. Oh, you need to add a terabyte, that's $20,000. That kind of stuff doesn't happen in this space, which is the beauty of being in the public cloud. So yeah, we definitely, before, I would say one of the things that we faced is growth, right? So when your environment grows and you want to add on and you start taking up space, what are the charges for more storage ultimately, and how does that affect you, and do you grow with it? And so honestly, in our last relationship, the cost for storage was through the roof. It was astronomical. It wasn't public cloud storage cost because it was private dedicated hardware. And so you'd go to grow and it'd be like, oh yeah, well, we have to add this and parity, and they cost lots of money to add a terabyte or 2 terabytes, and we don't have that in AWS. It's very clear. It's very cost controlled. That makes it really, really nice for us. And so we could put some of those headaches behind us too, which is really, I think, just something good about being in that public cloud space or whatnot. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about, is that storage growth shouldn't be our ultimate worry or concern. Before, we were having to micromanage like, oh, okay, what exactly is taking up that extra space? It wasn't there last week. It wasn't there 2 weeks ago. Oh, a service engineer took a backup and then left it on the server after our upgrade was done. But we had to go run all these queries to find it, or we had to ask you to run, find queries and dump outputs of directory searches just to find, hey, there's that big file. What is that? Oh, that's left over from something that someone forgot to clean up. And because of that, we were about to be charged an astronomical amount of money to add storage when all we needed to do was delete the right files in the right spot. Now we have full transparency, so we can see every file everywhere. We don't have to ask about it. And if we add a new file, it only costs us cents, on the dollar. So it's not a big deal either.
Great, thanks. We got several more questions. I'm going to try to address them all in the time that we have. One, how do you handle Oracle critical patch updates? Do you apply them as they release, or do you wait for it on project initiative?
We go not on release is pretty tough, right? That's bleeding edge to me. We're not quite bleeding edge, but as a matter of fact, I think we're doing database patching for CPUs this weekend for the ones that just came out in July, maybe. Yep. So, I mean, that's probably about the cadence we're on. We're pretty close to, within the quarter of when they come out. If it's more critical, yeah, we apply them right away. It just depends on what exactly it is.
Yeah.
And we work with you to schedule that, right? So
absolutely, it's all on our, ERPA will come to us and go, we got these things, when do we want to do them? And we've taken on the notion that we want to apply critical patches as quickly as we can. And so we're constantly looking at our schedule. We're pre-booking ideas with our users about when we might do patching if we needed to. Hey, when's a good time between the admission startup cycle and registration and this and that? So we kind of already know what those timeframes are, and we're trying to target most of our patching there. But we also can do so much patching with rolling restarts and quick turnarounds of our environment that if we tell our users, like, hey, we need to do patching tonight, and if we told them the system is going to be down for 8 hours, they're like, oh. But if we go, the system won't be down except for the 15-minute rolling restart where someone might be affected, to go, okay, do whatever you want to. That's just how it happens. And so we got a lot more flexibility and freedom with our users now to apply patches when we need to, and that's what we do.
Cool. Okay, we addressed the SQL Server, non-prods. All of your non-prod environments are in AWS. Do you still have your data warehouse on site?
Yeah, we have an on-site Oracle data warehouse. We use Active Data Guard, I think, also to replicate to an on-premise database copy. So it basically acts as a read-only node, and from there we use Informatica to read data out of that system and put into our data warehouse, and manipulate it along the way. And of course, then we're doing Cognos reporting and all kinds of stuff across the university. All of our non-prods are in AWS. We have basically a demo, dev, test, and support environments outside of production. Plus, we have some of those spaces include the Elasticsearch and those various components that support the environment, the Palm image server itself, that sort of thing. Okay,
great, thank you. So does ISU own PeopleSoft HR and FMS? You own HR, you don't own FMS, and we manage HR for you.
Yeah, we have HR, payroll, North America, benefits, time and labor, all of that in the HR stack. We don't have anything related to financials. Honestly, I didn't want to talk about it, but ISU still runs legacy Lucian Colleague, which is formerly known as DataTel, for our finance system. It's on our list. We're going to get there. We've got to work with those business users groups to migrate. I'm sure everyone has those things they keep in the closet about their university. That's probably one. Not proud of it per se, but that's what's running our finance. So we pump data to that after it comes out of payroll, and that's where we do our GL work today. We're hoping there could be some other future options there. We came from a legacy, when I started at ISU, the mainframe was still strong, and we had just migrated HR. We didn't migrate anything else. So we came from that environment. We got rid of the mainframe. We're migrating services that are older into the new modern stuff.
Cool. What do outages look like for database quarterly patching? Do you fail over to your secondary site?
AJ?
I'll let Vishal or someone take that.
Yeah. Ajay?
Hey, Vishal, thank you. Yes, we do have a small I would say not more than about a half an hour duration to patch, and then we do not fail over to a secondary site.
Okay. And there are two questions here related to performance. Do you pay extra when you burst to handle additional load, or is that built into your agreement? And then the second question is, a couple of years ago, latency was a big issue for large database and applications with AWS. What's the performance level in your prod? How many users do you have? So you're not paying anything extra to burst, correct?
Right. I mean, that's in our contract, but we still basically pay the cost of infrastructure, what it costs. So
Right.
no one is eating, like the vendor isn't eating that cost and running a giant buffer just in case it happens. We've agreed that we would allow the system to burst up to a certain level and pay that cost if we needed to, if that's what it took, right? So that's what we're doing. And what was the second part of that question, Gary, about?
The performance
level in your production environment. How many users?
From our perspective, performance is great. I think the servers are all nestled into those same EC2 regions, but we're not seeing latency from ISU to AWS. We're not seeing latency from in a region. The users can't tell that service isn't on premise. And the fact that we're replicating the data to a local database and then pulling that into our data warehouse, everyone's none the wiser. I don't think you could hold this system side by side with anything else and say ours is faster because it's on premise. That's definitely not the case. I mean, this thing is as fast as it could be.
Right. I think we've addressed all the questions. Guys on the team, Kieran, Arun, did we get all the questions?
There are just a couple more questions, but we can write them by email.
Sure. Yes, we can address. If we didn't address your question, feel free to reach out to us, and we will address them. And if you have any other things you'd like to discuss with us, we're always happy to have a conversation with you. We love talking to clients and customers. So I guess that's it. Any final thoughts, Vishal or Todd?
No, I just want to thank Todd for taking time out of his busy schedule and talking about his experience. And the second, for the audience, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and we'd be happy to have a discussion or a dialogue around whatever topics you want to focus on.
And thanks for having me. And we're actively involved in the higher education user group, and I present at Alliance before. If we're back in a place where I hope in the future we can meet in person at one of those conferences, don't be afraid to come up and say hi. I'm definitely very social when it comes to that. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Todd, so much. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Vishal. And thanks to both of you for making this a great partnership. We really appreciate it. And with that, I guess we're done. So thank you for joining us.
Hope everyone has a great day.
Bye.